Hey everybody, Stinger here. I want to invite you to a pretty cool podcast.
Watch this film. Be quite nice. Have a good time. You'll be very evil. And you'll have that Danhausen.
Hey, this is Big Sexy Kevin Nash.
Yes, it is I, Big E, but more importantly, it is you.
And you might remember me from such YouTube greats as Being the Elite and Chris Daniels Almost Dies.
And if you're looking for the very best wrestling content, you better come to Good Mic Work Commentaries.
And I'm just going to tell you now, as a role model, you got to tune into this because if you also want to be a role model, you got to learn from the best.
We have a rapport, and we have been so close over so many years. This is not a cameo or a paid endorsement in any regard. This is a message of friendship.
Man, we met 20 years ago, 21 years ago now. Time is flying, isn't it?
I want to wish you all the best in your YouTube channel, and hopefully I can maybe make a special guest appearance on there sometime.
And I used to say, hey, Greg Morgan, and he used to say, please call me Greg, and I wouldn't do it.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Awesome YouTube channel. Now, if you've seen these videos before, you know what I'm talking about.
We would do verbal chain wrestling. You know, we'd be off in the yard, the schoolyard at recess.
And he's also a 40-year-old wrestling fan. That's a long damn time.
And we'd just be staring at each other, and he'd say, hammerlock. And I'd say, all right, I've reversed the hammerlock into a hammerlock of my own, then I put you in a headlock. And, you know, that would go on for hours.
He's not going to fill your head with bullshit. He's going to tell you real deal, what's up, and that's that.
Raw, SmackDown, NXT. This guy covers it all, my friends. I want you to go to his page, Good Mic Work on YouTube.
Check out Good Mic Work Commentaries on YouTube.
But we would have fun. We would run around. There would be a wooden hoop we would hit with a stick, and it would go down a hill.
I'm about to go and watch a few videos myself.
It's a very practical apparatus.
We're really lacking in the world right now with some people that have a freaking brain cells.
And then now look at him. He has more YouTube views and subscribers than I do, and I'm fine with it because I played such an integral role in his upbringing.
Don't you dare be sour.
We always talked about wrestling. He was a big Lou Thez guy, and of course I had an affectation for the Hackenschmidts.
Clap for Good Mic Work Commentaries.
This is RJ City, a wrestling rock on tour.
And feel the power.
Listen to the podcast, subscribe.
You are watching Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Just want to encourage all you guys to check out Good Mic Work Commentaries.
And if you don't, we're going to have a problem.
Do it!
Do it.
Do it now!
Thanks a lot for the encomium and the nice words about my father's Hall of Fame induction.
Hope our paths cross again sometime down the road. Would love to shake your hand again, and good luck on this podcast.
And you don't just watch it one time. You can rewatch every single one of them.
And now, Good Mic Work Commentaries and Greg Morgan presents the Winged Eagle Podcast.
Happy Saturday, everyone. What's going on? Good Mic Work Commentaries back at you, and welcome to your Winged Eagle Podcast for August 27th, 2022. Y'all remember last Saturday how terrible everything went when we had the issues and the technical difficulties and all that nonsense? That will not be happening this time. Happy to say we've had a handle on that all week long, and I apologize again for what we went through last Saturday. That will not be the case today. It's going to be a fun episode. It's going to be a loaded episode, and it's going to be a drama-filled episode because AEW is on fire. literally, and I don't mean that in a good way, and they got a big pay-per-view coming up. So does WWE 1 week from today. AEW's All Out is 1 week from tomorrow. So there's a lot to catch up on in terms of what we're looking at both of those cards, but we are also going to unpack all of the AEW drama going on between Eddie Kingston, Sammy Guevara, Thunder Rosa, Britt Baker, Jamie Hayter. Still a lot of CM Punk questions. It's looking now like the direction that they're going in is actually to do CM Punk and Jon Moxley again in 1 week at All Out, which to me makes no sense, but we'll talk about that and what they could be planning to do in Chicago. We're also going to be talking about WWE. They had a hell of a SmackDown last night, or a hell of a SmackDown segment between Drew McIntyre and Roman Reigns, and I've got some ideas to pitch Drew McIntyre actually winning the title at Clash at Castle. Sami Zayn was an absolute hoot last night on SmackDown, so we'll talk about a lot of that as well. We'll talk WWE Draft. We'll talk contract tampering. We're going to talk Vince McMahon's birthday dinner with friends, some interesting friends. Just the other night, as the old man, I believe, turned 77, which is crazy. Really exciting rumors circulating that Triple H might also be redesigning some of the WWE Championship belts, and I've got big opinions on that, as I'm sure you guys can imagine. We'll talk Edge possibly having his retirement run and his farewell tour over the next year. Also look ahead to this Monday's Raw, that will be the go-home Raw to Clash, and also has the finals of the Women's Tag Team Tournament on Monday. We'll take a look at last night's SmackDown again, like I said, as well. We'll look at last night's Rampage. We'll check back on Dynamite, talk about maybe that Omega and Ospreay promo that happened after the show, a little bit more on CM Punk, and preview the entire card that we have so far for All Out. And it's a pretty good-looking card, especially if they wind up adding a title match to that this Wednesday. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Looks like about an 11-match card if you include Moxley defending the title against somebody, and whatever happens with Eddie and Sammy. So we looked like we got about 9 matches with a possibility of 11. For Clash at the Castle, however, I think we only have about 5 matches scheduled for that, and that's coming up in a week, and that's a stadium show, so they might be tacking some stuff on at the last minute. But like I said, there's a ton to get into today, and it's going to be fun. So I hope you guys are having a great weekend. I'm going to say all the hellos in the chat in 1 minute, then we're going to shout out all of the channel members, and we're going to let you guys know what we're going to be doing this week. We do have a watch-along plan for tomorrow, but there will be no Raw review on Monday, just to give you a heads up on that. But there ain't no way we're going to be missing Dynamite this week. We'll be up to watch that again and find out what exactly they've got planned for All Out as it relates to the AEW World title. So that's kind of what we got on the menu for this afternoon. I want to say hello to family members Mike Okumo and Tatanani. We also have Big J, Yachiro, Hassan, Vash Starwind, James Jones, Danny, Sam, Rodrigo is here, Chaz Medeiros, Ivan and Red Raven Rucker, Deshaun, and Kevin. K-Dog's Kennel, all family members and mods chiming in to say hello. Tatanani, another family member, good to see you, as well as Emilios and Sonic Plays. I'm not sure if I got you, James, or not. Nick Musser, thanks, brother. Another member is in the house. Default is here. Jimmy Anderson, good to see you from all the way across the globe, chiming in with a nice super chat. Good evening, everyone. Good to see you, Jimmy. As always, I'm glad you're here. This is going to be a fun one, man. Holla Man Boy, everybody else that's in here in the chat already, I appreciate it. And one big thing you guys could do. See, are you reading the ticker right below me? Likety like. Get your like on. Like this video hard, then like it again. Please hook me up with a like. I definitely appreciate it. And if you're not a subscriber, please do that. And if you are a subscriber, you can now become a family member by joining the memberships here on the channel. You can click the join button right below this video. I also have a link in the description that'll take you there. And you can look at several different tiers, join the family, and start getting access to perks and exclusive videos, things like that we are going to be starting next month. And as a matter of fact, the members have spoken, as I am letting them basically choose what watch along we're going to do tomorrow, because not only have I still not chosen that, but I don't even have a link up yet. So I'm going to be doing that tonight. But those of you who like to join us for Sunday night watch alongs, we have finally gotten our answer for what we're going to do tomorrow. I wanted to do a SummerSlam, so I basically just asked all the channel members in a members exclusive post which SummerSlam we should do. I took the 4 that I liked the best, put up a Twitter poll, and the poll was going to be between SummerSlam 2003, 2004, 2005, or 2008. We're going to do one of those 4 SummerSlams, and SummerSlam 2004 has won pretty much. There's no way it cannot win at this point. They've got 55% of the vote, and there's only a finite amount of voters that can participate in this because it's members only. So SummerSlam 2004 it is. When I get home from work tonight, I'll put a thumbnail together, throw the link up so you guys can be ready to rock on that. And we'll be doing that tomorrow, regular time, and that will be 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. on the East Coast. We'll probably be going head-to-head with that A&E biography as usual, and I apologize for that, but you guys know the drill. That's kind of what we do on Sundays. So SummerSlam 2004, I have not looked at that show in a long time. Of course, that's Benoit and Randy Orton in the main event, and probably some other interesting stuff too. So 04 it is. We're going to be doing that tomorrow night, and again, I apologize for not already having that link ready for you. Normally I do. It's in the description and all ready to go, but I just hadn't made a decision on that yet. So SummerSlam 04 it is. Next order of business, I want to shout out our awesome family members, all the members that have joined in since we began the memberships just a few weeks ago. I want to welcome all of my Shoot brothers and thank them. George Morris, Victor Colon, Reese Jones, Spectre, Nick Musser, Michael Kumo, Divine Ricks, and How Wheezy. You guys are our Shoot brother tier members. I appreciate that. In terms of my Kayfabe brothers, I would like to say hi to Ronnie, very good friend of mine, Marcus the Entertainer as well, Chris Barrera, K-Dog's Kennel, Isaac, and Steven Taylor. And then, of course, everybody who's a member, no matter what tier you're on, is a member of the family. And I want to say thank you to C-Mac, Ian Joe Dunn, Mab, Joshua Aparicio, Sam Piboon, Spaz Phoenix, Nicole Lensing, Nikita Abalakan, Deshaun Robinson, Zane G, John E. Dennett, Tatanani, Max Pokebra, Zach Palgett, Red Raven Rucker, Ian Dunn, Population 420, and JJ Legg. As always, guys, thank you very much. The memberships have been fun so far. We're going to be doing exclusive videos and all sorts of stuff. And like I said, when it comes to watch-alongs or reviews or making any sort of decisions on the channel at all in terms of future content, you guys are going to be driving that ship. So if you'd like to become a member, information is below. Also, quick shout-out to all of our subscribers over on the Patreon page. Zach Palgett, Joseph Hudson, Chris Broski, Divine Ricks, Nikita Abalakin again, Chris Miner, Super Fluffy Toaster, Deshaun Robinson, Martin Can, Apron Bump Podcast, Alan Carter, Brandon Yelverton, Nick Musser, K-Dog's Kennel, Ryan Y, Devlin Husband, John Redifer, Claudio Clavedetcher, Daniel Rodriguez, Reese Jones, Josiah Blevins, John Riffle, Michael Kumo, Naveed, and Blake Moran. Thanks again, guys, as always. And many of you subscribe on both and support not only here on YouTube with the memberships, but over on Patreon as well. Thank you again, as always, guys, for your awesome support. But we got to start getting into things because it's a loaded show this afternoon. I think I've got to welcome a new member. Jimmy Anderson is here. You know what, dude? I knew you'd be a member. You're pretty much already a member, but welcome to the family as my kayfabe brother. I appreciate that very much. If we get just a couple of more members, I think we unlock a whole bunch of more emojis that I can add for you guys to chime in with and all of that. So we get some more emojis unlocked. And like I said, next month we're going to begin our members only watch alongs. And then after we go in a couple of months, every couple of months, I'm going to do Q&As, things like that. And of course, you guys get a lot of other perks as well. So thanks again for being here and thanks for joining. All right. Good amount of people here in the chat so far. Again, thumbs up button. I would appreciate it. And you know what? I don't know that deal. I'm not sure what the A&E doc is tomorrow. I think it's Mysterio. It is, actually. Sam is correct. It is Mysterio, and that's probably going to be the Mysterio and Eddie Rivals doc. Is that what would air after that? So we'll be going head-to-head with that as always. And then as soon as the A&E bios wrap up, we're going to have to go head-to-head with football, which sucks. But a lot of you guys don't care unless it's a huge game. You're usually here with us every week. And I got a TV right here. So whenever there is a monster game this fall during football season when we're watching pay-per-views, I'm going to have the game on too. So we'll do a little bit of double duty and watch both and monitor both. That was always fun last year. Whenever there'd be a game on, we'd be, updating the score and we'd just be having a good time. Nice little Sunday hangout. So that'll be the case this fall as well. And like I said, tomorrow, join us for SummerSlam 2004, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. Same good mic work time, same good mic work channel. All right, well, that does it for the pleasantries. Let's get down to business. Let's start with the wrestling news. Big news coming out of sort of Rampage last night. Kind of disappointing news at the same time because they were hyping some big exclusive footage of CM Punk after his loss and after his squash to Jon Moxley last week. Danny, I'll shout you out and welcome to the family in just a minute. And we all watched that together. I even uploaded a mic drop of my real-time reaction and just recklessly speculating on what that could mean. I was pitching everything from an MJF babyface turn to go up against a heel CM Punk to an MJF and CM Punk two-man power trip and all these different things. One thing I did not think they were going to do, however, is have Punk wrestle Moxley at All Out. I thought they told us that he broke his foot in half and he got murdered by Moxley and he came back way too soon. The moment he was pinned, first thing Excalibur said, or maybe Taz or whoever it was, did he come back too soon? And if that's the story they're telling, he came back too soon from this injury and his ankle or his foot or whatever isn't strong enough, how the hell is he going to be strong enough in a week from now? He's still not going to be ready. But based on what we saw on Rampage last night, this exclusive footage, which was really only 30 seconds long, of CM Punk in the locker room, the trainers were asking him, what happened? He's like, I didn't feel anything. And he goes, which kind of sucks because when I broke it, I also didn't feel anything when I injured it the first time. So they're taking a look at him, but they're kind of implying here that CM Punk is going to have a rematch with Moxley at All Out. That was something at first I didn't think they would do. I'm like, they're not going to give us a match on Dynamite and then just do it again on a pay-per-view that you have to pay $50 for. But when you add the squash element in there, it actually now makes this match a little bit more interesting than if the two of them just had a regular match and John Moxley caught CM Punk with a quick roll-up, won the title, and they're doing a rematch, or if we had a DQ and they're doing a rematch. This squash adds a lot more intrigue, I think, to it. And the only issue I really have with it is that it depends on where they're going, where the story is going. If they're trying to go for the underdog angle with CM Punk, the against all odds angle with Punk, to where he is injured, he's not 100%, and he's going to fight and babyface fight in his hometown and overcome all of the odds and obstacles to win the championship in this grand babyface moment in front of his hometown audience. I do not recommend that. I just don't. It sounds good on paper, but based on everything that we already know about CM Punk, all the news going on around behind the scenes, CM Punk seems to be falling out of favor a little bit with the wrestling fans. I'm still very pro CM Punk, always will be, but that doesn't mean, just like I'm pro Brett, that doesn't mean I have to agree with Brett's behavior all the time, and everything Brett says, the same goes for CM Punk. If he is very abrasive backstage, or he rubs people the wrong way, or if he's just a basic overall asshole, that's not something I necessarily agree with, but I still like CM Punk as a performer, and I think he's just amazing on the microphone and is a really good person to have in pro wrestling, attitude, problems or not. But still, Chicago would be fine because, of course, they're going to love CM Punk no matter what, but I don't know how that's going to come off the following Wednesday, although they might still be in Chicago. I don't know where the Dynamite is after All Out, but once they get away from that environment, that Chicago environment, the pay-per-view weekend and the post-pay-per-view show, and then Punk is back champion again, and he's babyface who overcame all the odds, I don't think the fans are going to like that. I think they're going to reject that. I think CM Punk might hear some boos. And if he ever is attacked from behind by a returning MJF, I think MJF might hear some cheers. So I kind of think that what they should do at All Out, if that is the plan, I guess we'll find out on Wednesday, unless they announce something on social media prior to then. But on Wednesday, if they make an announcement, or if CM Punk demands mic time and he wants a rematch against Moxley, and then Moxley comes out and is like, if you want to get killed again, that's your prerogative. Hey, Tony, if you got no problem with it, I got no problem beating his ass again, because Moxley isn't going to care. So if they just rewrite the match and then it's booked for All Out, and that actually does happen, then we got to talk heel turn. I mean, we saw what happened when Austin turned heel in Houston at WrestleMania 17. Fans didn't even know he turned heel. They were going crazy. Probably not the best venue or place or stage for that particular heel turn with the handshake with McMahon, because if Austin wasn't over enough, putting him in Texas is just going to amplify that even more. CM Punk's not quite on that level with Chicago, but he's close. He's had some amazing ovations and amazing matches in that town. So if you turn him heel there, the fans are going to accept that or no? I think Chicago is smart enough to, appreciate the heel turn and act accordingly, especially if CM Punk does win the title by turning heel and then just destroys the crowd on the mic. I mean, rips them to shreds. and do whatever he can just to turn that crowd on him. Maybe reference the Money in the Bank match. Boy, you people are different. Back then, I actually respected you. Now you're all a bunch of pieces of shit. I don't know. Something to where he can just really incite the crowd and get them throwing shit in the ring or something. I think that would be a lot of fun. And even if you did tie in like an MJF appearance, like maybe if he came back and helped CM Punk win the title somehow. I know that wouldn't make any sense, but some sort of big surprise or big return or big swerve of some kind in the main event, I think would be great. And I hope we get that, because as of right now, as we're speaking, we don't even have a world title match booked for All Out, I don't think. I don't think they made anything official last night. That'll probably all come on Wednesday. So if that's going to be the case, that's exciting, because you almost think that idea of CM Punk coming from behind against all odds type of babyface victory is just not something that they should do, and I think they would know that too. So that means we'll probably get something more fun, like a heel turn or whatnot. I mean, a lot of people think CM Punk already turned heel, doing the Snow Angels in the ring, waiting for Moxley to come out, and some of the things he's been saying on the mic, and how he's been acting, and hell, even with that shitty kick that everybody's been making fun of him for. Bobby Fish, I think, had like 3 tweets about how terrible CM Punk's kick was. But in a lot of ways, that was a heel turn. The heel turn cost him the match. He went for the kick, turned his heel, foot gave out on him, couldn't recover, paradigm shift, or whatever the hell Moxley calls his finish these days, for the win, and that was it. So I'm skeptical of how they're going to make this match happen, if it in fact does, on Wednesday, how they're going to present this, because CM Punk he couldn't even walk on that damn foot. You know, he's hobbling around. Moxley, I mean, he was completely limp after Moxley laid him out. How is he going to be better just 10 days after all of this happened? How is his foot going to get strong enough to compete against a badass like Moxley, who's on fire and is on a tear and seems unstoppable at this point? And he's going to lose to some guy who's not even 100%. There's going to have to be something happening there. And I think a heel turn at this point is the most likely option for that. So what do you guys think? I don't know. Next weekend is looking bright. It's a big weekend. Clash on Saturday, All Out on Sunday. It's going to be super fun. Do I think it's possible for Mox to win if they face it All Out? Maybe, but it would be weird. I'm like, well, why would they do that? What if Mox just beats him again? What if they do that? You talk about shock. Here, everybody's expecting either CM Punk to win the title back by fighting his ass off, or turn heel and win the belt in a shady way. But instead, Mox just squashes him again. An identical match to what we saw on Wednesday. Nobody would see that coming. It would get everybody talking for sure. I'd be into it just because I appreciate shock value. As we're going to talk about later on, in terms of squashes, as I pitch ideas for Roman and Drew at Clash, I was one of the few people that appreciated and liked the shock value of Goldberg squashing Brock Lesnar at Survivor Series. I thought that was awesome. If you remember back in those days, the internet was losing its mind. They ruined Brock. Oh my God, he beat the streak, and now he's nothing. He should quit the business, go to NXT. Did that squash harm Brock at all in the long run? Not a bit. The very next day, he was still every bit as a scary beast as he was the day before. So I like shock value of squashes, and that really was a good one. And Brock Lesnar's squash over John Cena at SummerSlam was also very good. I appreciated Moxley and Punk's squash. A lot of people were so concerned with trying to figure out why that they didn't appreciate how cool that was, just to be shocked. Everybody's like, oh, I can't believe they did that. I'm like, well, let's just find out why they did. They're telling a story here. His ankle gave out. Moxley's ruthless. You think Moxley's going to stand there and wait for him to get up? No, he's John Moxley. If that match would be disappointing if it wasn't a squash at that point. If CM Punk breaks his leg in half or breaks his foot and can't do anything, and then Moxley just toys with him. This is for the title, man. You got to put him away now. Moxley did what he had to do. And I think fans, for some reason, they get it in their head that they've been ripped off somehow or whatever. And I'm like, you can still have stories with a squash. You don't have to have every match, with a bunch of near falls and stuff. You can do different things You see that in MMA, sometimes in any other sport. Sometimes it's blowout, sometimes it's an overtime game. You should have that in wrestling as well. And there's nothing wrong with having some shocking outcomes for somebody who's normally a big star or a former champion in the company or a champion in the company to come out there and just have an off night. We all have off days. We all have bad days. We all have bad days where we're not ourselves mentally, or we're not ourselves physically, or we're lethargic, or we're sick, or we're just not focused or something. That can happen to literally anybody in any form or any walk of life. So that adds a little bit of realism in my mind. To me, everybody's, oh, it doesn't make sense. I'm like, why doesn't it make sense that somebody breaks their foot in the match and then loses immediately? If I'm fighting somebody and my foot breaks, I'm going to lose that fight pretty goddamn quick. So I don't understand why people think like it doesn't make sense and shit. I am struggling a little bit with understanding how it's going to make sense for CM Punk to somehow be fine to wrestle it all out, basically on one foot or whatever, or if they do an angle on Dynamite where he says he's cleared, he can barely walk, but the doctors assure him that his foot will hold up in a fight, so he's going to give it his all and give it 100%, and then he turns heel in the main event or something. That could be fun, but it's going to be weird. I don't see how you don't have All Out with CM Punk there now that it's been known. Last week, I think most of the talk was with the CM Punk heat, the talk of him possibly no-showing Dynamite, the issues with Hangman Page, the meeting with Tony Khan, the AEW talent meeting that took place on Dynamite. Since then, it's become pretty clear that CM Punk isn't going anywhere. All of the stuff we saw on Wednesday wasn't a squash to get him out of the company. It was a squash to tell a story that he had the foot thing, and they're going to keep rolling with Punk and Moxley a little further. So we already know he's not going anywhere. So we know he's going to be sticking around, and they might have him win the belt right back. It is kind of interesting that he lost it in his first ever title defense, didn't he? I don't think CM Punk ever defended the title as AEW champion. One time, and he got beat instantly. As Jim Ross put it on Dynamite, he got his ass whipped. That's exactly what happened. Even the announcers seemed to be taken off guard by that finish, and I like that. I have no problem with shocking finishes because we have so much wrestling. We have hours upon hours between WWE and AEW of all this wrestling per week, countless types of matches, pay-per-views all the time. Why can't you have one that's just a little weird, that just does something different, colors outside the lines? I don't understand why fans have such an issue with that. There's so much wrestling to enjoy. Let's get nuts with one match. It's okay. It's okay. The business won't die. You'll be fine. Everybody will be fine. I swear, I promise. I've been watching wrestling for 40 years. If I was really going to die because of a finish, it would have happened already. So I promise you, everything's going to be fine. If you see something that your wrestling eyes aren't conditioned to normally see, I swear it's going to be okay. So I'd go for something nuts. I liked what happened on Wednesday night. I wasn't worried too much about looking for answers. I just thought it was cool. So hopefully, if they do the match at All Out, the main event will also be cool. Before we get into some of the backstage drama, Sammy, Guevara, and Eddie Kingston have some drama. So does Thunder Rosa, Jamie Hayter, Britt Baker, and maybe a few others. We'll get into that next. But I want to welcome Danny Allmark to the family. Appreciate you becoming my kayfabe brother, my friend. Glad you're here. Welcome, and keep an eye out for those members-only posts if you want to chime in with some ideas for reviews, watch-alongs, things like that. Thank you very much, Danny, and welcome to the family. There was a comment that I wanted to answer, and now I've lost it. Where did it go? Where did it go? Antoine Fair. Fans don't understand what telling a story means nowadays. I kind of agree. Everybody's so hell-bent on kind of digging into what and why, and I'm like, just let it unfold, part of being a fan is to watch the story, not to know and anticipate every move. I like to speculate. We love to do that. Oh, maybe they could do this, maybe they could do that, but I'm never going to be sitting here and be like, they should do this and they should do that. Let them do whatever the fuck they want. You can choose to enjoy it or not. Luckily, we got 2 North American promotions right now, both doing really good things, and if you don't like what you see on one show, there's another one to watch. So that's my advice to everybody. Try to have fun. It ain't that hard, really. I swear. You know what? That deal, there is such a thing. You're 100% right. There is such a thing as a bad squash. I did not like Brock and Kofi. I was in the building for Brock and Kofi at Staples Center for that first ever SmackDown on Fox, and I am a big Kofi fan. I was proud to watch him compete as WWE champion. Not so proud to watch him lose in 4.5 seconds. So I agree. There are squashes that aren't so great, but some of the ones on a big-time level. The reason that one didn't work out was because a lot of people kind of expected Kofi to get squashed. They were hoping he would put up some sort of a fight. But when you have 2 mega giants, when you've got your Brocks and your Goldbergs and Brocks and Cenas, and you have a big-time squash or a really shocking finish, that's when it can really take you back. And like I'll talk about with Drew later, if you notice that stuff about Brock Lesnar, he was able to maintain his star power after a loss like that. Roman, I believe, is getting himself to that point. That's why I'm going to pitch Drew McIntyre winning the title later, is because in the long run, it won't harm Roman to lose. I'm going to pitch Drew McIntyre squashing Roman, so just stay tuned for that. But before we get into that, let's talk about more backstage turmoil in AEW. They had a talent meeting this past Wednesday where many talents spoke. I think Chris Jericho kind of rallied the troops. The Bucks spoke. Kenny Omega spoke. A few people, and Tony Khan, of course, spoke, and they addressed a lot of the issues, I believe, that were going on and that we've heard about going on behind the scenes in terms of, locker room issues, locker room heat, frustration with TV time, and an overall kind of lack of structure behind the scenes, which AEW has taken steps to rectify. They have issued a bunch of promotions in the past few weeks with people taking over specific departments and talent relations positions and things like that. So things are coming together and I think getting a lot better in AEW. And I think we're going to see some dramatic improvement because things were happening. So much was happening at the same time in AEW with all of these different stories and the heat and the problems. This was a place that was seemingly a really positive, great place to work. And then almost overnight, you just hear about all of this turmoil. So I think from here, the only way they have to go is up, and things will probably get better from here because the talent is not stupid. These are all professionals, and they understand that a bad work environment can have a ripple effect on business and your livelihood and just, go all the way down. So it's in everybody's best interest to get along and go out there and provide the best entertainment possible. And I think all the men and women that work in that company really at the end of the day are smart enough to know that. So hopefully all of this will get resolved. But there were some specific issues between specific wrestlers. One of those issues was between Sammy Guevara and Eddie Kingston. Now, they were originally set to wrestle at All Out. That match has not been official or confirmed by AEW, and it may have been scrapped from the entire show unless they pick it back up on Wednesday. But Eddie Kingston was reportedly suspended from AEW due to an altercation with Sammy Guevara that stemmed from a promo that he cut a week ago on a taped Rampage or whatever, when he was talking about Eddie Kingston, and apparently in the promo, which was edited off of the broadcast, it didn't even air. In the promo, he called Eddie Kingston a fat piece of shit, and apparently Eddie has got this thing where he doesn't want to be called a fat piece of shit. He got pissed off about that. Sammy Guevara comes back from the match through Gorilla. Eddie's waiting for him. "You can't call me fat," gets in his face. Apparently he pie-faced him, actually put his hands on him a little bit, and they had to be separated, and apparently Eddie Kingston got suspended for that by AEW for a couple of weeks. I think he's back now. Fightful Select reached out to Eddie Kingston for comment, and all he said was, it was my fault. He has owned up and said that it was my fault, he shouldn't have done it, and basically is accepting responsibility for this. Unfortunately, that's not going to work for Twitter because Twitter has already decided that Sammy Guevara is public enemy number one. You cannot have a hot wife. I'm sorry. It's going to rile up too much jealousy. It's going to get too many panties ruffled, and especially when you flaunt it and you kiss, like Corey Graves and Carmella. It's like the same thing. Fans are just going to fucking hate you. So I was laughing when there is a direct quote from Eddie Kingston himself, the man, the guy, out of his own mouth, teeth and gums and tongue, says, "It was my fault." But no, Twitter ain't having it. It can't be his fault. Are you crazy? It has to be Sammy's fault. It has to be, because he's Sammy and we've decided we don't like him. So that was amusing to me. Eddie Kingston has been on video, seemingly not in character, talking about how much he can't stand Sammy Guevara and that he's a little piece of shit and all of this. And Sammy issued an entire statement on this, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but he basically laid out exactly what happened. And since there were so many people around that can corroborate this all happened in front of everybody, it would make no sense for Sammy to type out a whole bunch of lies here. And it seemed pretty straightforward. It seemed to be a pretty straightforward explanation in my mind. And Sammy went on to say, he goes, as a professional, I am always privy to and want to know when somebody doesn't want something said. If we have a program and they come to me, don't say this, this, or this, I would never do that. The reason I would never do that is because I have things like that. Sammy does not want his poor ex-girlfriend and ex-fiancée, Pam, who has done nothing wrong, to be bothered or harassed or ridiculed by fans in any way, or just, constantly tagging her and talking about Sammy Guevara. Do you think she needs to hear this shit? So Sammy's kind of got the lay off my ex rule in promos. Just don't talk about her. It's none of this has anything to do with her type of thing. And wrestlers respect that. And since wrestlers respect that from Sammy, he's like, if there was anything, I would never go out there and say something that I knew the person I was working with didn't want me to say. Would never do that in a million years. If Eddie would have came to me, said, just remember, don't call me fat, then I wouldn't have done that. And apparently Eddie's take on this was that since Sammy Guevara called him a fat piece of shit, why would anybody believe that a fat piece of shit, if he wins it all out, which I believe he was scheduled to beat Sammy, why would anybody believe a fat piece of shit could beat Sammy? Because there's tons of non-body guys in wrestling that have won plenty of matches, won world titles. I don't think that has really anything to do with it. So I understand that there's going to be things that talent is going to find sensitive, especially if it's something that they're constantly criticized for, in the public or whatever, and they just don't want to add to it. So I can totally understand Eddie not wanting to be called that. However, it's wrestling. And if I'm cutting a promo, if I'm in a program with somebody and I'm a wrestler, I expect my opponent to call me a bald dork with a dumb YouTube channel. I expect that to be said to me. I'd be disappointed if it wasn't said to me. And I think anybody with any sort of, outward, visible flaws, as you would call them, in wrestling anyway, should expect that stuff to be targeted. There's trash talk everywhere. Think of what is said between players on the football field. The horrible, probably homophobic slurs and the racial shit and just the horrible trash talk that takes place on the football field, on the basketball court, especially in UFC and whatnot. So in wrestling, Eddie Kingston is a guy that is so brutal on the mic. I mean, he can slice you. He's one of the best talkers this business has ever seen, and he can say some absolutely biting and brutal and slashing type of thing. So I'm surprised that something like just calling him fat really upsets him that much. But if it's on his list of don't say that during promos, then wrestlers should respect that. So it sounds like this was just a misunderstanding. Sammy swears, if I would have known that, I wouldn't have said it. And it wasn't even on a live show. It was a tape show, which means they could edit it anyway. So basically Sammy was like, the whole thing was unnecessary for Eddie to lose his temper, get in my face, shove me down, when if you just would have thought about it for a minute, we'd realize this probably isn't a big deal. I could have apologized for it and we could have all moved on, but it turned physical. Eddie got suspended and now their all-out match might be in turmoil. So in terms of this particular situation, I'm not going to say Sammy's always going to be right. Sammy Guevara is a young kid. He's good looking. He's going to do douchey things. That's just what young, good looking kids do. You can't avoid it. So I understand that Sammy has already done and said some things that have been somewhat immature, done some things that makes fans roll their eyes at him or whatever. You can totally understand and appreciate that, and while also knowing that he's not going to be wrong in every single instance. In this particular instance, at least in my opinion, I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying in my opinion, when I look at the story here and read what happened, I don't think Sammy's really in the wrong. I think maybe Sammy at most owed Eddie an apology. My bad, dude. I didn't know, or everybody knows you're not supposed to call me fat. Well, I forgot. Sorry. Maybe he owes him an apology. Like I owe you one, or you can give me a receipt in the ring if you need to. Hit me with a chair in the face or whatever. I'm sorry, but Sammy never got that chance because he wasn't even down the stairs before Eddie is in his face, pie-facing him and getting physical with him. So what do you want him to do? At the end of the day, I accept Sammy's explanation at face value. He basically said exactly what happened. Now, I don't know how smart it was for him to openly address all of these things, basically tell the story from beginning to end or not, but he even got on another fan's case on Twitter who was giving shit to Eddie Kingston, and Sammy was like, let it go, leave him alone, it's all over with. It looks like everybody just wants to move on here. And if this whole situation has caused one or both of these guys a payday at All Out, who's to blame for that? So that's another thing you got to think about here. If Eddie losing his temper, and another thing that Sammy said in his explanation, that he believes Eddie had to go do some anger management stuff as part of his suspension. But if Eddie loses his cool, shoves Sammy Guevara, and that forces Tony Khan to cancel the All Out match, you've just cost Sammy Guevara a payday. Your temper has cost somebody else livelihood. That's not cool. So unless there's way more than this than meets the eye, or this story goes deeper, I don't think it does. I think that people in AEW need to fucking chill, man. And maybe that's why Eddie Kingston has never made it to the big time level, because he's kind of a loose cannon back there. So I think Eddie is a great talent, but I think also Eddie is someone who's very lucky to have a position in a major company like this, because he is there for the connection he has to the crowd with the crowd, and he is there for his ability to speak on the mic. He is a very bold and outward character. He's very in your face, and that's where his value is. His value is not what he does in the ring, and his value is not from an athletic standpoint at all. I'm not even sure how athletic this guy really is whatsoever. So when it comes to somebody like him, I'm fine with nobody having a body. I don't want every wrestler to look like Chris Masters, but I also think you got to be somewhat, athletic or somewhat of an athlete. But if you have so much on the other side and you tip the scales so hard with your charisma and stuff, a lot of guys can get around that. But in today's day and age, in a very athletic line of work with so many different styles and sizes of wrestlers, Eddie Kingston is lucky to be in a spot that he has on TV like he does, being paid what he does by a major company, when there's a lot of people, I believe, far more talented than him that have no contracts right now. So sometimes you got to look at it like that. Eddie's lucky to be in his spot. Sammy Guevara and Ty Mello, you expect them, to be somewhere or be seen or whatever. But a guy like Eddie Kingston, who's been around for a long time, he's a little bit older, doesn't have the best wrestling look, but he's got a good wrestling voice. And, that's a big deal. So I hope this whole situation gets resolved. I think it would be really cool if we did see these two hook back up on Wednesday somehow, and the match at All Out is a go. We'll see how that goes. Apparently, at first, it was going to be Eddie Kingston beating Sammy Guevara. I don't know if they still go on with this match, if they change that finish or what they're going to do. But as of right now, it looks like that match is off for All Out. Speaking of heat, we're going to talk about Thunder Rosa and Jamie Hayter. But first, I want to thank Big Joel with the MX 200 Super Chat. I'm not sure what currency that is, but thank you very much, Big Joel, for being here. I don't believe that's American currency, but it could be. I don't know what MX is, but thank you very much for that, Big Joel. You're the best. Could Southern Mike Work please give a birthday shout out to my best mate, Luke, in Australia? He got me following years ago when he told me about the original 6+ hour massive WrestleMania review. Man, that is awesome. Your friend Luke is a good dude, man. He told you about me. He told you where he can find good mic work and that I do long 6-hour videos on YouTube about WrestleManias. Luke in Australia, happy birthday, my friend. Enjoy a kangaroo burger on me, big ass can of Foster's, and have yourself one hell of a birthday. Thank you, Luke, for introducing Big Joel to us. Happy birthday, my friend. Thank you, man. So glad you're here. Pesos. Okay, thank you, Zach. I was wondering what that was. Well, thank you for the pesos, Big Joel. Appreciate that. Yeah, Forbidden Pork Chop. I saw what douchebag Inferno said. He always just has to say something, but every time he does, he gets completely dunked on Twitter. Nobody likes this guy. He is the Brad Shepard of wrestlers. He is a laughing stock. Every opinion he has is just some asshole-ish, MAGA, shitty, douchey, just condescending crap. And he gave his opinion on the Eddie Kingston thing, but then he had to add in at the end, because he always has to have some stupid abrasive opinion that, oh, these guys need to get in the gym and put the work in and stop embarrassing the industry. I'm like, fuck you. There have been people that have had way less bodies than you that have been 100 times more successful. And as I told him on Twitter, Sable's luggage had more respect in this industry than Disco Inferno had. And yeah, Big Show farted right in his dumb, idiotic looking face. So fuck Disco Inferno and anything he says. He can go to hell. He's dumb. But the whole situation was very talked about on social media, and a lot of people had takes. And like I said, the Sammy Guevara hate, when you see irrational hate is so easy to spot. That's why it's so easy to spot it with the AEW bad faith haters, because they're so hypocritical. They don't care about anything that makes any sense. They care about hating what they hate at all costs, no matter how ridiculous they sound. And it takes 2 seconds. You can read 5 words into a tweet and know the direction it's going in when it comes to that stuff. I'm like, oh, they already have a stick up their ass about that person, so they're not going to be objective. They're going to have their opinions, and they're going to stick to it no matter what. It is. So we'll monitor Sammy and Eddie, find out what happens there. More drama behind the scenes with Thunder Rosa. Now, of course, we saw on Wednesday, Thunder Rosa out of nowhere in a very almost emotional and teary-eyed interview with Tony Schiavone reveals that she's been injured and she's going to have to forfeit, at least temporarily, the AEW Women's title, and they're going to crown an interim champion now at All Out. Now, it was supposed to be Thunder Rosa versus Toni Storm. According to Fightful Select, the internal plan was to have Toni Storm actually win the title at All Out. I mentioned that last week that I would go with Storm if I was them. I think she just has tons of marketing potential. She's got a great look. She's a good worker. She looks like a star. She looks like somebody that could be on the top of WWE's roster. I believe that Toni Storm is a Becky or Sasha or Charlotte level performer. I really do. So I would go with her anyway. But now Thunder Rosa has relinquished the title, and now we're doing a 4-way at All Out. It's going to be Britt Baker, Jamie Hayter, Hikaru Shida, and Toni Storm. It's going to be a 4-way now at All Out to crown the interim AEW Women's Champion. So if they were still planning on going with Thunder Rosa and Toni Storm, and Thunder Rosa's injury isn't going to keep her out for too long, you could probably still pull the trigger on Toni Storm at the pay-per-view and then just do Storm and Rosa when Rosa comes back, and maybe have Storm beat Thunder Rosa like CM Punk got beat, maybe just not in a squash. That would be good. Now, there's more to this story as well, because Thunder Rosa apparently has got a ton of heat with Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter. Apparently, Thunder Rosa and Britt Baker can't stand each other and haven't liked each other for quite some time. I'm pretty sure we already knew about that, because I remember talking about that when they had their Lights Out match on the St. Patrick's Lights Out match or whatever. So I think that was kind of known. She also has heat with Jamie Hayter. A lot of this stems from Thunder Rosa's working style. She does tend to be very stiff in the ring. And apparently, I think she broke Jamie Hayter's nose. It was a couple of Rampages ago where it was that tag match or whatever, and Jamie Hayter is covering somebody, and Thunder Rosa comes off the top rope and basically just hits a coup de grace on the back of Jamie Hayter's head, and her face just plants right into the mat. And it was one of the sickest looking bumps I've ever seen. I didn't know if it was a botch. I didn't know if that was a receipt. I didn't know what the hell Thunder Rosa was doing, but she nailed her so hard. And apparently after the match, this is just all hearsay. Nothing here has been confirmed or anything, but they say that Thunder Rosa was hiding in a bathroom so that Jamie Hayter wouldn't beat the shit out of each other, or beat the shit out of her for the botch, which, can be funny on one hand, but also that's not the environment you need, not in modern times. It was in the 80s, it was fine. People were getting fights in the backstage area all the time. Jacques Rougeau and Dynamite Kid, and Dan Spivey and Adrian Adonis and Brett and Sean, and all sorts of fights, and all those Sting and Dick Slater. Lots of famous ones. Paul Orndorff, Vader. Look them all up. They're riveting. So, but that shouldn't be happening in 2022. You shouldn't have to worry about your talent, legitimately scrapping, or somebody fearing for their life so much that they went and hid in a bathroom to hide from this person. Stuff like this, hopefully, can be worked out. But they've got a lot of heat, and Thunder Rosa's got a lot of heat. And you tie that in with her getting injured and forfeiting the title, and, just more turmoil behind the scenes. Now, again, this is nothing new. Before anybody gets too excited and, jumps out of their seat to say, AEW doesn't have their shit together. You don't have to look any further than the company on the other side in WWE. We just went through the same thing with them, with Becky Lynch and Charlotte, and there's issues and personal beefs that happen backstage in every wrestling company. You're never going to not have that. Hell, even Riddle and Rollins had that beef. Riddle and Goldberg. There's plenty of things. This stuff is going to happen. You see that in any job. You guys all have jobs, right? How many people at your job you hate? At least a few. At mine, I hate like a minimum of 5. Everybody else is pretty much cool, but there's a few that I just don't like, and as people. So you're gonna, you have that. You run into that. You can't avoid it. There's nothing you can do. So it's going to happen in wrestling. But I don't think anybody should find themselves in a position where they should be hiding in bathrooms to avoid an ass kicking. You know what I mean? So hopefully these things will begin to be rectified. The one problem, I think, that when you do have a wrestling environment that has more creative freedom and maybe a lack of structure, that's when, and maybe, you know, no locker room leaders, no one on the roster that really commands that respect. You got some veterans there, and you got a lot of great people. I mean, you even have your big shows. You got your Dustin Rhodes, and you got your CM Punks and Jerichos and Omegas, and plenty of guys that are there, but you don't have that Undertaker. You don't have that Andre the Giant. You need, I think, that one figure. You know, and WWE locker room had a little bit more almost like internal structure in the locker room, not with the management, just with the boys. You know, they would do the wrestlers' courts, which I think have run its course. I would not advocate for doing wrestlers' court in AEW at all. But there was accountability in the WWE locker room back in the day. If you ate chicken and got it in somebody's bag, you changed in the broom closet, you know, or whatever. Or they kicked people out, or you had to buy the talent a round of drinks or a case of beer because you went into business for yourself in a promo or whatever. So there was some accountability just with the roster themselves. But, you know, maybe AEW doesn't. I think that there's enough personalities there that you can have people there where nobody's going to fuck with and can be locker room leaders. Claudio is another guy that I think, you know, should be somebody to be at the top of the roster and you know, kind of oversee everything as somebody that's you know, a veteran, you know, and well-traveled and not an asshole, that type of thing. So hopefully these things behind the scenes will get better, but I think that is one of the side effects to allowing a little bit more creative freedom, because they were very much about that since WWE was so, you know, rigorously micromanaged. It's not so much like that now with Vince gone, but when you had one company that literally every single word and what kinds of words you use were being heavily scripted, heavily monitored, you could really just feel the staleness emitting off of the product. So AEW tried to go in the other direction. We're going to let these people go out and be themselves, because that's how you connect with the audience anyway, by being yourself. So they allowed a lot of that freedom. But when you have that type of freedom and you have guys going out there and saying stuff, and then it can boil over and create, you know, some bad magombo and bad morale in the locker room, and you don't want that, especially in a locker room that we thought was, you know, really was a pretty pleasant atmosphere. So there's still a lot of questions with heat between certain guys. CM Punk's relationship with Hangman Page, with Colt Cabana, with Tony Khan, with the locker room in general, and where you know, where his direction is going to go. But hopefully these things get better. But between Punk and Hangman and Sammy and Eddie and Thunder Rosa and Hayter and Britt Baker and all this stuff, it's like, Jesus, you know, why all this happening at once is really, really crazy. So they got a big pay-per-view coming up in a week, and I think they can bounce back pretty well. I mean, even though we had a crazy squash on Wednesday, it was still a damn good Dynamite. I think this week will be as well. And I know All Out will be good. I'll be going on Bleacher BR Live and putting my $50 down here this week. Oh, man, I love this story. Let's talk about something fun, really good, and potentially awesome, even though nothing has been confirmed on WWE's end. But there has been some rumors that WWE, or Triple H specifically, might be redesigning some championship belts. This comes courtesy of Dan Beltzer at BeltFanDan on Twitter, who tweets out yesterday, rumor mill says Triple H making numerous belt design changes. Not sure how credible of a source this is, but that's a pretty random thing just to come right out and say. He's a belt guy. He might be clued into this type of stuff. And if that is the rumor and Triple H wants to change some belt designs, Greg has some ideas. Classic Intercontinental. Winged Eagle, please. The other one's the TV title from WCW. That's not going anywhere. But if you are even considering championship belt designs and redesigns, I'm begging you, Triple H, if anybody can do this, and if anybody would think this is a good idea, it would be you. Please give us some classic designs back. You don't have to give us everything. I believe that the Winged Eagle will probably never come back unless Cody wins the title and brings it back as a, you know, a throwback or as a novelty or as a custom belt or something like that. I thought might be possible. And many of us have felt like in recent years that any talk of belt designs and any belt designs WWE does aren't even going to be that exciting, because they're so hell-bent on having their fucking logo smeared across the front plate of the belt where all you see is WWE. And that sucks. And I would love for that not to be the case, because when you have a wrestler on TV with the belt, you already have your logo everywhere. It's on every goddamn turnbuckle pad. It's on the Tron. It's in the corner of the screen. It's on the announce desks. It's on the ring post. It's on the aprons. The fans have it tattooed on their fucking foreheads when they walk in the door. It's everywhere. So at least for TV, I think it would be really cool if Triple H brought back some more classic or traditional belt designs for the wrestlers on TV. And guess what? If you still insist on giving these championship sports teams, the Super Bowl winners, the finals winners, all these WWE belts, then fine. Save your ugly logo belts for that. You can still have the WWE logo belts. Present those to the Super Bowl winners. That way you can have your WWE logo on Fox in front of 33 million people or 100 million people for the Super Bowl. But the wrestlers in the WWE with WWE logos surrounding them can maybe carry more traditional belts. And how cool would it be to see Gunther unveil the classic Intercontinental? And I know we've talked about this so many times. It's a theme on this channel. Those of you who've been following me for many years know this pet peeve of mine. I know that I'm in the minority of this. It's a generational thing. I am from the generation that doesn't like colored straps on belts. Every time somebody talks about their favorite Intercontinental title, it's always the white strap. What is wrong with you people? What is with you people? Colors suck. It's got to be the black strap. It looks better. It's sleeker looking, and I like that. But when Cody brought back the classic IC, I was so happy to see it back. I can live with the white strap. I don't like it, but I'll take a white classic IC over the ugly ass shit they got now. But if it was up to me, I would bring back the belt that Brett wore, the belt that Perfect wore, the belt that Shawn wore before he colorized it, because Shawn would have blue straps and white straps. He'd do some different things. Shawn started all this shit. Actually, Warrior did. I think Warrior did with the WWE title. He had that blue strap on it, and then they started changing it with Shawn. And then, of course, years later, we would have Cena with all of his dumb custom belts. I don't like custom belts at all. I like tradition. And now you got another promotion out there. WWE should be reminding people of their history. And I wish they never would have changed the title belts at all. I never needed the belts changed in 1998. Day after WrestleMania 14, new IC, new Winged Eagle's gone. And I was like, God, this sucks. I didn't like that. So would they really need to change them? The belts look great the way they were. So if these rumors are at all true, and Triple H we are going to move into a WWE that is going to really have one champion. Because I'm still wondering if they're going to somehow find a way to separate out these titles. Maybe if Drew wins at Clash, Heyman was like, Roman has a clause in his contract that says he can't lose the Universal title outside the U.S. So he's still Universal title. His run remains. Now Drew's the WWE champion on Raw, facing Cross or whoever. So maybe they could still do that. But if they don't, and there's going to be one champion, we don't need one belt. So I would love there to be a belt redesign to where you have one world champion carrying one belt. And then on Raw and SmackDown, the IC and the US can be the show's top titles with the world champion floating between the two. That's what I would love ideally as a fan. I think for SmackDown Fox and Universal, they might want other things, which is why I think separating the belts back out is still possible. But if they are just going to have the one champion for a while, or at least the foreseeable future, have one championship belt. It's too bad they couldn't award this thing, at least I don't think they did, but they taped SmackDown for next week. Last night, because they're going to be in Cardiff next week. So Roman has his big 2-year celebration next Friday on SmackDown. I didn't read what happens in that. I assume that Drew's going to get some sort of last word. It just feels like that's going to happen if you do the math usually on how these things go. So he'll probably attack and clear the ring and stand tall as the show goes off the air. I can almost guarantee that's how it's going to go. But it's too bad that these belts weren't already ready, because you could unveil one to Roman for his 2-year celebration and then hand it right over to Drew at the pay-per-view. So we'll see if any of this turns out to be true, but just the thought of this, Triple H does really have a deep appreciation for the history of wrestling. And I think he is just the type of guy that would be into the idea of bringing back more traditional designs. I know I can't ever have it my way. We're probably not going to get the exact Winged Eagle title that Bret Hart wore to the ring as the WWE title belt. They're probably going to want something a little different, but I would love a redesign that maybe resembles the Winged Eagle, maybe a new IC that resembles the classic Intercontinental. and those tag belts, for the fuck's sake, man. Get those back to the demolition belts, please. I would love them to do all of that. But, you know, I'm also very old, and WWE's audience is not, and what I want and what's good for them is probably two different things. But if there's any truth to this at all, Triple H, if you're listening, please give me some of my classics back. You have no idea how happy that would make me to see some of these belts that I watched on television as a kid to still be on WWE television in 2022 and 2023. That would just blow my mind, and I would love it. So let's do it. Let's go. New WWE Championship belts. Speaking of WWE, there's also some plans on, or I should say lack of plans, on the WWE draft. The rumors have been circulating that WWE is going to be doing a draft soon. But then it was reported that there are no, at least internal draft plans at the moment within WWE. And some feel the draft could be pushed all the way to WrestleMania weekend next year. Or I'm sorry, to after WrestleMania next year. Not WrestleMania weekend, but probably the week after or something like that, like they used to back in the day. This was a pretty common thing they did. A week or so after WrestleMania, they would do a draft to shake things up. And I was surprised by how many people didn't like this either. Oh my God, that's a terrible idea. Oh, for fuck's sake, they're moving the draft. What is wrong with people? The draft means nothing. Look at what we're watching right now on Raw and SmackDown. There's no fucking brand split. These guys are bouncing all over the place. Sammy and the Usos are set to be on Raw on Monday. McIntyre was getting worn out by Roman on SmackDown. Everybody's on both shows. It does not matter at all. And also, I've always thought that the WWE draft is usually done for a couple of reasons. Number one, just to shake things up. And number two, give the fans some fresh matchups. But that was just accomplished 4 weeks ago when Vince McMahon retired from WWE. That shook things up. Triple H taking control gave us fresh matchups. We're about to watch Gunther and Sheamus at the pay-per-view, which I cannot wait to see. That promo and that segment between the two of them last night on SmackDown was pretty good too. We're already getting fresh matches. To do a draft now, you don't need to do it right now because Triple H just took over. We're getting fresh stuff here. Moving the draft to after WrestleMania will help keep things fresh. See what I mean? Like, it's already fresh. We're in fresh. We're in the middle of fresh right now. But maybe in a few months at the end of the year, things will get less fresh, but then we'll be getting into WrestleMania. Those will be exciting times. And then, of course, after WrestleMania, you have the lull, and that's a perfect time to do the draft, move some people around, and then you got all fresh shit for the summer. That's how you do it. This is actually a good decision by WWE. I think fans are just so preconditioned to reject everything. And I'm like, just think about it. This is actually a good thing. There is no rush to do this draft. We do not need to do this draft in October. Why? To move a bunch of people around that are already competing on both shows anyway? What's the rush there? You know, so let Triple H settle into his role. Let him get going a little bit. He's probably still in spaz mode here. He's running around trying to get a bunch of stuff done, trying to change things, fix things, get things all set up and structured how he wants them. Doing a draft would just add too much right now. Let him settle into his role, because by the time we do have a draft, if it does in fact happen in 2023 and it happens in April, by then Triple H should be well in his role. He should be comfortable. He should have a system going, and he's kind of guy. He knows what he's doing, and he's comfortable in the role now. And I believe that he'll be able to really plan and think clearly and set up a really good draft for us. But we don't need a WWE draft right now. There's no point in that. So I am in favor of moving it to next year after WrestleMania for that very reason. WWE's also been busy behind the scenes, allegedly tampering with AEW talent, reaching out to them about possibly returning to the company. Now, this was reported a couple of weeks ago that apparently they reached out to at least one AEW talent about coming back to the company, and all of the fans in unison screamed that it was Adam Cole. And I said, that's stupid. It can't be Adam Cole. Even WWE wouldn't be dumb enough to contact him because he just signed with them. His contract isn't anywhere near up. Apparently, he signed a 5-year deal. And I was reading tweets and YouTube comments from people that were saying, oh, WWE contacted Adam Cole so he could come back, so he could tell Tony Khan he quits and he's going to come back to WWE. Doesn't work that way. Doesn't work that way. Adam Cole can't just go to Tony Khan, give him his 2-week notice and say, bye. He's under contract. WWE is not going to contact anybody who isn't available for 5 more years. What are they going to tell Adam Cole? Hey, when that deal is up in 200 months, why don't you give us a ring? Come on. Apparently it was Chris Jericho, according to him. Some fan, I think on Twitter, had pitched some faction with maybe Jericho and Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, and Jericho responded by saying, well, some of the higher-ups would want that to happen sooner than you think. #tampering. So it's not even like he was alluding to it. He flat out said, I was the one when you do #tampering, that means apparently Jericho was the one that they contacted, at least according to him, unless he's just completely full of shit here. But Jericho would make much more sense, because you would think that Jericho probably has a little bit less of an ironclad contract on him than Adam Cole does. Cole just signed for 5 years. Jericho's been there from the start. He's been 3 years in now. He's 77 years old. I think Jericho's 1 year younger than Vince. He's really old now. WWE might feel like there might be a chance to get him, or he might be available, because, like I said, he just signed with them 3 years ago. If he signed a 3-year deal, that deal's probably up now, and he's either recently signed us an extension or was about to. So WWE maybe reached out to him because they thought he might be available. I can believe that. WWE's done this before. A few years ago, they were tampering with Ring of Honor contracts to the point where I think WWE even held off on signing a lot of Ring of Honor talents after their contracts were up, just to let the dust settle before they brought in Adam Cole and Fish and O'Reilly and guys like that. They have had secret meetings in the past too, with other wrestlers and people, meeting in hotel bars and in secret back rooms and at speakeasies and in hot tubs. All sorts of secret meetings behind the scenes, especially back in the day with WCW and WWE. And to me, I'm trying to look at this in the most fun way possible. I like this. I think it's fun. I think it's fun that we have contract tampering in wrestling. I don't have a problem with this. I think it's great because it reminds me of WWE and WCW when Vince McMahon flew down to Florida in 1996 and met with Hulk Hogan and, and shit like that. And Bischoff's meeting with Brett and backroom, meetings. And I like that stuff. It's all very, very compelling to me. So WWE apparently has reached out and doing typical shady WWE shit. AEW sent a bunch of letters to WWE lawyers saying cut the shit. And like I said, Jericho implied that it was him. So hopefully WWE just keeps their fingers off of other people's talent and just concentrate on what you're doing. Stop being shady. Speaking of shady, Horny McHorny Pants celebrated his 77th birthday the other night in New York City, having dinner with John Cena and his wife, Brock Lesnar, and Pat McAfee. Vince with him had a female companion. I guess it's his girlfriend or his mistress or whatever. We all know Vince is married, but him and Linda I don't even think they've seen each other in a couple of years. But Vince was out in his first public appearance, or at least his first public sighting, I should say, since he resigned from WWE, and he still has very powerful friends in the business. You think anybody's going to come up and heckle Vince when you're sitting there with Brock Lesnar and Pat McAfee and John Cena? So I kind of like that Pat McAfee is like in the inner circle. I think that's hilarious that he's come in there and become such a fan and become such a beloved member of like the McMahon inner circle. I think that's hilarious. So that was probably a pretty interesting dinner to attend. I would have loved to sit there eating my little ribeye while Vince McMahon and Brock Lesnar and John Cena and Pat McAfee talk about stuff. I'd just be talking to the wives, or the girlfriend and the wife, and I'd just be sitting there listening to them. I hope Vince McMahon had a great time. He was filmed getting out, leaving the restaurant, getting into some sort of car service, and he was kind of covering his face. Big ass knots on his elbows, and Vince was out. At least Vince is out doing stuff we've all been wondering. I've been wondering what Vince is doing. Is he waking up every morning and making coffee, and is he doing chores and vacuuming his house, and is he running errands? Like, what is he doing? Watching Maury Povich on daytime TV or soap operas or something? I don't know. No, don't, Vince, whatever you do, please don't watch any soap operas. I don't want you getting any ideas. Oh, that's a great idea. Pretend he's dead and come back 10 years later. Hey, Bruce, let's do that. Triple H, let's do some crazy storyline. Vince, stay away from the soap operas, please. I beg you. So Vince was out having a good birthday. I guess that's good for him, and also a little bit funny. Let me cruise over here to the chat before we get into Edge. I want to talk about Edge's potential retirement coming up maybe in a year. I just want to knock out a couple super chats that have been coming in. Big Joel, I got his I got his birthday shout out there. Luigi, there you are. Luigi DeRaw Gaming. Appreciate that $10, my friend. Hey, Dad went to SmackDown last night, and it was a double taping, cross-made debut. Got a huge pop, and the pop for Roman is crazy in person. Yes, I will be rolling through what we're going to see next week on SmackDown. I'm not giving any spoilers. I'm just writing down the segments that we're going to see. And I do know that Cross had his in-ring debut, and I think it's possible Cross could play a role in that Drew and Roman match, too, at Clash. We will see. Steeler Lee, appreciate the $2, the old Attitude Era belt. I wasn't a big fan of the big blue. I didn't hate the big blue. It grew on me. I know Austin hated it. I think a piece of the belt cut him on his forehead or something. He got pissed and they made the smoking skull. But I was such a big fan of the Winged Eagle. No belt has ever looked better than that to me. So even though people love the Undisputed title, a lot of my listeners, you're of that generation, you love the Eddie belt. It's not a bad belt to me, just not even anywhere close to one of my favorites. But that is based on your generation. Whatever championship belt was around the waist of the champion when you were between the ages of 10 and 20 is going to be your favorite belt, which is why the Winged Eagle is my favorite belt and Attitude Era belt and other ones are other fans. But I didn't love the big blue, to be honest with you, Steeler Lee. But I like it better. I would like it maybe better than the one they had now. I would really like to see something throwback-ish be brought in. Max Pokey, bro, welcome to the chat, my friend. Undisputed title, please. Classic IC and US WCW United States title. Yeah, a lot of people like that Undisputed title design. I don't, but if they brought it back, I'd be cool with it. You know why? Because it would make you guys happy. And the Classic IC, of course, I would love. And I did always like the old WCW United States title, the one they had at the end of their run there. That was from, I guess, maybe mid-90s, early 90s through the end of the run. That was a good-looking championship belt. Would love that championship to come back as well. Nick Musser, what's up, dude? Appreciate the $2 from you. If only Triple H could bring back WWF instead. I have made my peace with WWF because I think that it took a long time to deprogram myself from saying WWF and transitioning to WWE. But really, we're getting close to the point where WWE has now been around longer than WWF. WWF changed to WWF somewhere between 79 and 81, somewhere in there, and they changed to WWE in 2002. So you're only talking about 21 to 22 years there where the WWF logo was used. We're already in year 20 plus of the WWE over initials over the WWF. So it's been a long time. At this point, changing it back to WWF would almost confuse things. So as much as I would love Triple H to bring back the old letters, at this point, I don't even know if there would be a point. You'd have to rebrand again. Do you know how expensive? Have you guys ever looked into how expensive a rebrand is for any company? It's nuts. I mean, it would cost so much money to do what they would have to do to change everything back to WWE. I think or change everything back to WWF. I think WWE is here to stay. WWF Panda, hell yeah, that deal anyway. For those of you who have not smashed the thumbs up button yet, can you do me a favor and please do that? Make sure you subscribe as well. Follow me on Twitter. Join the family by clicking the button below. We are getting close to unlocking some more emojis. We're pushing 40 members now on the channel. I think we only need a couple of more, and our ultimate goal is to get to 100. Once we get to 100, I'll be feeling really good, and the members-only exclusive content will be flowing nicely. But that 100-member goal is what we're looking at in the immediate future anyway. And then after that, after the 100 is reached, we'll go for 1 million. Just big jumps here. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about Raw, but I don't want to talk a lot about Raw. I just want to preview this week. On Monday, we've got the finals of the Tag Team Title Tournament, which is going to be Dakota Kai and Io Sky taking on Tamina and Aaliyah. Not Tamina, Raquel and Aaliyah. Yeah, versus Dakota and Io Sky. Ever since the bracket was revealed, Io and Dakota have just been the ones. being that this is a go-home show to Clash at the Castle, and since Dakota and Io already have a match planned, I don't really see Raw having any big surprises like a return of Sasha and Naomi, unless Io Sky and Dakota Kai lose, unless Alexa and Asuka come out and cost them the match or something, and they don't even win, and then you put the belts on the other team. Then you could bring out Sasha Banks and Naomi to confront them, and there's your Clash at the Castle match, or Castlevania is just easier to say. You could do that, so we'll see. We're also getting The Miz versus Bobby Lashley, and the Usos and Sami Zayn are coming to Raw. But the reason I want to mention Raw is because of last week. We did a review on Monday, reviewing Raw and the main event match between Edge and Damian Priest. And I think it was during the Raw review, the Edge promo came up. Somebody tagged me in it on Twitter, and we kind of listened to it together. And that was a very good match, very good ending of Raw, with Beth Phoenix getting involved to kind of back off Rhea Ripley a little bit. And after the show went off the air, Edge cut a promo because they were in Toronto, which is Edge's former hometown. He lives in Asheville, North Carolina now, which is just a beautiful town in the mountains. And he has not wrestled in Toronto in 12 years or something like that. So it was his first match there in a long time. He closes the show with a great victory over Damian Priest and cuts a promo talks to the audience after the match, and says that in a perfect world, he would want his retirement to happen 1 year from now, like 1 year from this day. Generally, WWE always hits Toronto in August, and he expects them to come back through there next year, whenever that is. So he said that he would like to have his retirement, whether that be a match or just a retirement in general. He said, I would like to say goodbye right here in this building 1 year from now. So I would love nothing more than for this to come to fruition for Edge. He deserves this. He had to retire in such heartbreaking fashion all those years ago, and like it's been heavily documented in his biography and every time he's ever spoken about his retirement, the hardest part of that was not being able to go out on his own terms, being forced to go before he was ready. If Edge is able to remain healthy this whole year, and he can get this do-over next year, and he can have some great match, put somebody over, have some sort of nice send-off, I would love, love, love that as a fan. It would make me feel full circle. I was doing videos already. I was already on YouTube when Edge retired, and I remember just how heartbreaking that was. I probably back in those days wasn't able to articulate, my feelings as well, but I remember just being like, damn, that sucks, man. Edge was one of my favorites. He was so good, had a great career. I met him very, very early on in his career, and I've always just rooted for him, and it was heartbreaking. So when Edge says that, a lot hinges on it. Edge, number one, he has to stay healthy. An injury would fucking kill that. Or maybe an injury would just extend time to his contract and you have to do his retirement somewhere else. But if Edge can stay healthy for this next year, have a couple of good programs, wrestle semi-part-time, wrap up his deal with the Judgment Day, have a good showing in the Royal Rumble, have a great WrestleMania match against somebody. It doesn't have to be for the championship, just against somebody. Unless Triple H wants to give Edge a nostalgia run. When he came back, I fully expected Edge to win the title at some point before he retired. So maybe next year, Cody wins the belt at WrestleMania, Edge beats Cody, and then Cody wins the rematch in the retirement match or something like that. I don't know. I think Edge would probably want to put someone over in his final match. I just feel like Edge would be the type of guy to do that, especially if it means putting over, a younger star, maybe a Braun Breaker or, I don't know, somebody like that. By the time we get to next year, who knows who will be on the cusp of stardom, and maybe use Edge as that stepping stone for whoever that person may be. Finish up, have him do it with Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens would be great, or Sami Zayn, or somebody like that. I've always talked about the possibilities or how cool it would be for the wrestling fans if Tony Khan and Triple H, or Vince McMahon at the time, got together and made some sort of a small deal. I pitched bringing R-Truth to Dynamite 1 week and putting Danhausen on Raw just randomly 1 week, have them both make appearances backstage and then never do it again. You'd have a perfect explanation for R-Truth. He just thought he went to Raw. Oh, wrong wrestling show, my bad, see you later. It would be cool if AEW or if Tony Khan could say, if WWE wants Christian, we can work something out. I'll let them have him for the night. Maybe not to wrestle. I mean, Christian would be an excellent final opponent for Edge, but if I'm Edge and I'm a veteran, I'd rather give a little back to the business if I could. It would be great if my best friend Christian could be there, but I think in a match, I should probably lose to somebody who can benefit from my loss. Otherwise, he would be facing Christian. He would probably beat Christian, which means an AEW guy would lose to a WWE guy and all of that. So maybe that's not really the right match to have unless it's a match that Edge insists on. And he said, and goes to Triple H. I'm like, do you think we can make something like that happen? And Triple H is like, well, I'll reach out to Tony and see or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that seems likely. But if Edge has any sort of retirement send-off, any Ric Flair, leave the memories alone type of send-off, I think it would be cool if Christian was there. I think it would just be cool. Like, you can be competitive without wanting to destroy the other. You can be fiercely competitive without really, truly hating the other. You can just be competitors, trying to outdo the other. But when it comes to something that would just benefit the business overall, neither company gets the better of the other in this exchange. It's a win-win for everybody. Just to say, hey, let Christian come to Raw. He doesn't have to do anything. He can just come in the ring, doesn't have to talk on the mic, nothing. Get in the ring, hug his friend, just be there. I think would be really cool. So I'm going to be hoping all year that everything goes well for Edge. Every time he's getting a match, I'm going to hold my breath. I want him to stay healthy. I want him to have a nice, good run because he already got hurt and had to lose that time. So I would love for Edge to have a nice, consistent, year-long farewell tour in the company that culminates next year in Toronto in a great retirement match where he puts somebody over and all of his peers and all of his colleagues and all of his friends and all of his family are there to send him off the right way, the way he should have been all along. And it would just be such a happy ending for an ending that almost wasn't happy. And if Edge never would have came back, he would have had to live with that for the rest of his life, saying I had to retire against my own terms. And to be able to get that do-over, it would be incredible and be so satisfying, not only for him, but for all of us too. So I kind of hope that happens, and fingers crossed that it does. Spaz Phoenix is here. What's up, dude? Appreciate that $10 from you. Hey, Greg, Cat, and chat. The last episode of the Triple H Era Pod goes live on Monday morning at 10, a week after Clash. The WWE Last Week series begins, and also AEW is a mess right now. Yep, it's in the title of this video, I believe. They're a mess, but hey, you know what? That just gives us shit to talk about, We ain't tribal here. We just talk about stuff. Oh, is that no kidding? They're transferring heat. Transferring heat says, word is the Vince Netflix doc series is still happening. If you haven't heard, good mic work. No, I have not heard that. On a serious note, Edge and Matt Hardy should have each other's last match. I say no on that one. I'm glad that they've made peace between each other, but I don't consider them... That feud was so wrapped around Lita that most of their story is in the tag team. Now, if Edge and Christian wanted to face the Hardy Boys in a throwback final match or something, fine. But I can think of a lot better people for Edge to face in his last match than Matt Hardy, because all that Matt Hardy match will do is just bring up old stuff, and I think everybody's moved past that, So I would not go with that one. But Edge could definitely work with someone. Yeah, and Danny, you bring up a good point. Remember, Christian has already been a part of one of these deals. They sent him to TNA that one time so they could get Ric Flair to do the Horseman Hall of Fame. So we could see that happen again. I think it would be nice. It would just be nice. It would be so nice just to see that fucking handshake between the two promotions. Maybe it would chill the fucking fans out for 1 second. These tribal ass monkeys in their idiot war, frothing at the crotch to attack whatever company and promotion they've decided to hate because of Jim Cornette or whoever else has influenced their brains. But when you just think for yourself and have a good time, I think watching wrestling is a hell of a lot easier. Edge versus Carmelo Hayes. Okay. I wouldn't be against it. I think the match would be awesome. Anyway, let's talk about last night's SmackDown real quick. Not a great show, but a couple of interesting things on the show. We had the New Day and Viking Raiders segment where Xavier Woods pulled the old Kevin Nash spot, where he's in and you knew it too. It was just too obvious. When you're a wrestler and you're coming out to the ring in a wheelchair with a blanket over your legs, Nash did that in WCW, and he had a blanket over his foot in a cast, but then when he took the blanket off, the foot in the cast was a fake foot, a fake leg, and then he had his gear on. He stands up from the wheelchair and starts kicking ass. Xavier basically did the same thing. The Viking Raiders back up Kofi with the kendo sticks, or back up Kofi, and Xavier tears off the blanket, gets up from the wheelchair. Kofi tosses a kendo stick, and they both wear out the Viking Raiders. The little New Day funeral they did the previous week was kind of cool because it did imply we might be seeing Sarah Logan come back, so that's kind of cool. Holy shit, did I love the Gunther and Sheamus segment. I'm telling you, I'm looking forward to this match more than any other one at the Clash. This is going to be so good. I hope this is a program. I hope this is the first time these guys face, and they face 6 other times, because this is going to be some brutal shit. Loved the way it was set up with Gunther and Sheamus staring each other down while Butch and Ludwig were like brawling in the ring behind them, and they're just staring straight ahead, not even budging away from each other. I thought that was really good. We had that last chance fatal 4-way to get back into the women's tag team title tournament because we saw the injury to Gigi Dolan, which knocked out Toxic Attraction. So Natalya and Sonya won that fatal 4-way. I think Doudrop and Nikki was a part of that. Tamina and Dana might have been. And is it Shotzi and Xia Li? I think those were the teams. Word is Nikki ASH may have gotten injured in that match last night, so all the best to her. Hopefully she is okay. And Natalya and Sonya won the last chance fatal 4-way to face later on in the show Aaliyah and Raquel Rodriguez. Of course, Aaliyah and Raquel would win. They now advance to Monday to face Dakota Kai and Io Sky. I'm never going to say that right. Dakota Kai and Io Sky on Monday. Winner becomes new women's tag team champions. If Dakota and Io Sky lose, then I think it's possible we could see Sasha Banks and Naomi turn up and do a face-off with the champs, with Raquel and Aaliyah, and have a match at Clash. But if it's Dakota and Io winning, which is what I expect, and I've expected the entire time, then I don't think we'll see a Sasha and Naomi return, at least on Monday, because they already have a match at Clash against Bianca and her friends. So if there is still going to be a reappearance by Sasha and by Naomi, I don't think Monday will be the place for that, which is why I'm electing not to do a Monday Night Raw review this week. I've got some stuff to do. Elizabeth and I are going to spend the day together, and I'm not going to be doing a Raw review on Monday, so I apologize for that. But if we do get some sort of massive surprise, Naomi turns up, Sasha turns up, I'll come up, exclusive mic drops, talk for 20 minutes about it, and at least so you guys can hear my thoughts. But as of right now, no Raw review for Monday. Ricochet beat Baron Corbin, hit him with a shooting star press for the win. I love that they've given Pat McAfee his telestrator or his brain scan or his, what did the King call his magistrator? Was that what it was called? Lawler and Heenan both did these things. It's funny to see McAfee drawing all over his shit. I got a big kick out of that. And the Drew McIntyre and Roman Reigns saga was amazing as well. They showed a couple of video packages hyping the Drew and Roman match. Also talked about Drew and his redemption and this big show at Clash at the Castle that he's going to be a part of. And they were also focusing a lot of the show around Sami Zayn and his relationship with the Bloodline. It was some of the most entertaining stuff I've ever seen. This Sammy and Bloodline storyline is my favorite thing in WWE. Sammy's my favorite person in WWE. And when they were doing that bit backstage where he's sitting in the chair with Roman and the Usos are behind him, and Roman tells Sammy, he goes, I appreciate you, what you did for me last week. And you can see Sammy getting all excited. And he goes, yeah, I redeemed myself. And if you notice, too, they're all wearing Bloodline shirts, but Sammy's is the white version. He doesn't have, the new one. So it's he's not fully in there yet. And Roman thanks him for taking the bullet for him last week. And he's like, that's something family would do. And he goes, yeah, that is something family would do. And Roman's like, I'm going to need one more favor from you. I need Drew distracted. I need Drew's eye off the ball. And it was almost as if Roman didn't know that Sammy had a match with Drew. Because Sammy's like, well, I got a match with him in the main event tonight, so that will be the perfect opportunity for me to derail Drew and his focus, because I can get in somebody's head, I can make myself comfortable, have a picnic, do a little dance. And as he starts dancing, Roman and Jay, who Jay on TV, the character Jay Uso, hates Sami Zayn. Jimmy's cool with him, Jay hates him. And Roman, so he goes, is that how you're going to do the dance? And then the camera even pans up to Jay, who's just got his hands over his face. They are laughing. He has got to be so fun to be around. He cracks everybody up. And the way he started doing the dance in the chair and Roman laughing and Jay breaking character, so great. So fucking great. So they do another backstage segment later on where it's just the Usos and Sammy. And, of course, Jay is yelling at Sammy. And he's like, what is with your negativity? You need to chill the hell out. So I'm going to do what I got to do. You got to man up. So basically they're demanding that Sammy goes out there and beats Drew McIntyre, this huge star that has a very legitimate chance to beat Roman at the pay-per-view. He's not going to be losing clean to Sammy fucking Zayn on the go-home show. But the Usos are basically telling him that he better win or else. So he doesn't. He gets Claymored in the match and pinned. But after the match, Drew is immediately swarmed by the Usos and by Roman Reigns. He tries to fight them off. They get the better of him, and they start wearing wearing his back out like nothing I've ever seen with those steel chairs, just whacking him to death. McIntyre posted pictures on social media after the show of his back just welted up. The cuts and the deep gashes in his back from that chair that they were hitting him with was fucking crazy. So they destroy him. He gets hit with chairs. He gets speared. Roman takes the chair, puts it across the chest and throat of McIntyre, sits in it, and just poses with the two belts as the show goes off the air. And one of the most brilliant, I don't know if it was on accident or what, but when the camera is zoomed in on Roman like that, and you see the Usos on either side of him, and he's got both belts, Sammy kind of slowly makes his, maybe he was on the other side, kind of slowly makes his way into frame in the little gap between their heads. And of course, is a mess, and he's just kind of like, yeah, and he's just kind of posing with the Bloodline. It felt like that was Sammy's actual welcoming into the Bloodline. And, you know, on paper, this probably wasn't designed to last very long, but I'm really enjoying Sammy and his desire to be a member of the Bloodline and to be a part of this group, no matter how much he's abused verbally or even physically at times by Roman Reigns or the Usos. He's constantly being yelled at. He's constantly being made fun of. He's constantly looked at as a joke, and they're all, you know, they're using him or whatever, and he is still just hell-bent and fiercely loyal to this group, and he wants to be a part of this family so bad that I want him to be a part of the family too. So I hope that Sami Zayn sticks with this angle for a while. I think eventually it will blow over. I could totally see a scenario where the Bloodline, especially if something happens at the Clash and Roman drops the belts and maybe they blame Sammy or something, where he just gets fucking murdered by Roman Reigns and the Usos and they beat him up or something, and out comes a charging, angry Kevin Owens with a bunch of weapons or a chair or something, and he runs everybody off, and we've got a Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens reunion of some kind. That would be a lot of fun. But at least for right now, Sammy being a part and associated with the Bloodline on TV is something I don't want to see stop yet. So I hope they continue that. But based on what we saw last night on SmackDown, the video packages for Drew, a lot of the promos that Drew McIntyre has been doing lately have been on fire. A lot of people said he was boring during his WWE title run. I never thought he was really boring. Everybody was really happy when he eliminated Brock from the Rumble and he was set to win the belt at WrestleMania, but then he had to be champion in the Thunderdome. Kind of a bad time anyway. Terrible time to be champion during the pandemic. He was a turnoff to a lot of people. He wasn't necessarily boring. The entire damn product was boring. It wasn't their fault. They were performing in front of video screens. So everybody was all about him, but then as soon as he won the title, then all of a sudden he's not good enough, he's boring and all that. I've always had Drew's back. I know that Drew is not The Rock on the mic, but Drew has a lot of energy. McIntyre is always like, if I'm behind the scenes, if I'm Triple H or Vince or somebody, I'm loving McIntyre. He's always ready to rock. He looks the part. He's got a great look. He's always in amazing shape. He keeps himself that way, and he always gives it all in his promos, in his matches, no matter what he's doing. Even if he's working with Happy Corbin, he's out there having a good time. He's energetic. He does business, and he basically just goes out there and does what he's told. And lately, his promos have had a little uptick in intensity to them, and he looks like he's almost more comfortable, maybe even a little bit more out of his shell. Maybe he knows that WWE's about to give him a big moment at the Clash, and he's ready to play ball, you know, and he's just having a good time because he knows what's in store for him at the Clash. But his body language, his intensity, his electricity, his overall vibe, it's not like it was ever bland or boring or subdued in any way. It's just the volume seems to be turned up a little bit on him right now. And I really like the promo he had a couple of weeks ago with Owens on Raw, with the wrestlers in the wrestling ring. So let's wrestle stuff. I love Drew. So much so that based on everything we saw last night with Roman putting him down and them just humiliating McIntyre like that, you mean to tell me after all this, he's going to now go into Cardiff in front of all those people and lose this match? I mean, there's still 2 more shows. We got Sammy and the Usos coming to Raw on Monday. So McIntyre could ambush them, get the better of them, or whatnot. We also have SmackDown that's already been taped with a Roman Reigns 2-year celebration, which you know Drew's going to crash. I haven't read the spoilers, so no spoilers. You don't have to tell anybody here in the chat. I'm just guessing. I'm going to guess that McIntyre's either going to come out there during that celebration and kick everybody's ass, or come out there and get his ass kicked himself. But if he gets the last word on Raw and then McIntyre gets the last word again on SmackDown, then maybe that changes things. But based on everything we saw last night, I'm like, how can this guy lose now in Cardiff? So I've kind of changed my tune on Roman Reigns a little bit. I love Roman. I still think he's fantastic, but I also think a lot has been accomplished in his 2-year long run. And it's probably unrealistic for me to ever hope that he's going to have a Hogan run, a 4-year long run. I think the fans just wouldn't be able to tolerate that, not today's generation of fans anyway. So for him to have that type of a run seems unrealistic unless you split the titles up. That's why I kind of pitched the idea of maybe him losing the title at Clash, and then Paul Heyman drops some bombshell stipulation that prevents Roman from losing the Universal title outside of the U.S., which is stupid because it's a universal title. He should be able to defend it anywhere in the universe. But if some sort of weird contract stipulation gets revealed where Roman gets to remain the Universal Champion and now Drew is WWE Champion, that would keep Roman's 2-year run intact and allow him to continue further. But it would be cheap and it would have an asterisk by it. So instead, I have enough faith in Roman Reigns as a character, just like I did with Brock Lesnar, that he can, just like I did with John Cena and a lot of people, that I believe that Roman can lose a match and not lose his star power at all. He's that good. He's built himself up to that point just like Brock has. And like I said earlier, when I mentioned Goldberg and Brock at Survivor Series 2016, I put a lot of this on Twitter last night and some late night thoughts when I was making my notes. I'm like, if you really wanted to get nuts at Clash of the Castle, and you really wanted to get nuts, you think about Drew, this could really be Drew McIntyre's like WrestleMania 36 redo. The match he was supposed to have with Brock that happened in the Performance Center that was supposed to be in front of a big crowd. He was supposed to have this big moment. You think Triple H has forgotten any of that either? This might be WWE's way of saying, you know what, Drew, you deserve to have this moment that was taken from you. And let's put you over in a big way. Let's give you a statement win. Let me ask you this. What would be wrong with squashing Roman? What would be wrong with that? I know Twitter would immediately be like, oh my God, they ruined Roman. Oh my God, they buried Roman. Because of course they would. They're Twitter. Of course. But would they really be burying Roman? Was Brock buried when Goldberg squashed him at Survivor Series 2016? Some of the fans on Twitter might have thought so, but no. In the long run, it didn't affect Brock at all. Even getting beat like that by Goldberg didn't make Brock any less scary. Made even more scary. Oh shit, I wouldn't want to get in his face after losing like that. Brock was still every bit of a scary freak as he was the day before he got squashed by Goldberg. In the long run, it might have briefly affected him in the short run because the fans are going to talk and claim that they know what the fuck's going on. And they're going to say that everything's been ruined and they fucked him over. He beat the streak and now they've ruined it. No, they didn't. Brock was still a huge draw. He still went on to win many WWE championships. He had many WrestleMania main events, faced Roman many times, got in a goddamn bulldozer and tipped rings over. The loss to Goldberg didn't do dick to damage his star power in the least. And he wound up, beating Goldberg at WrestleMania anyway. So if Brock is going to be gone for a while or whatever, and we've had Brock and Roman so many times to where the fans are kind of sick of it, and what we saw at SummerSlam damn sure should have been the blow-off at least for now, I would make Drew and Roman the new Roman and Brock. And what better way to make a statement win and say this is going to be kickstart, this is going to be the beginning of what's going to be an intense, on-again, off-again, 5-year-long war between these two. If I'm Triple H, I'm going to try to get Drew to the same level as Roman. So you have two again. Just like when you had Hogan and Warrior, Brett and Shawn, Rock and Austin, Cena and Batista, or whatever other example you want to give. When you can have two megastars both doing their thing, Roman is already there. The only way to get Drew there Even though Drew's a multi-time champion already, the only way to really get Drew there is have him destroy Roman. And what's wrong with that? What's wrong? Like I said earlier, everybody can have a bad day. What's wrong with Roman getting distracted, eating an early Claymore a few seconds into the match, and just never being able to recover? McIntyre going full Moxley on him, sees the opening, smells the blood, does not let up. Roman is struggling. He's rocked from the Claymore, and Drew doesn't let up. He swarms him. Flurries of kicks and punches and slams, and he claymores him again, then he claymores him again. Roman never even gets a fucking punch off. Well, maybe he does, but his offense is very little. He just got caught off guard. Drew pins him. 70,000, whatever there, stands up. Holy shit, maybe some of them are mad because they didn't get a long match, but I think the shock value of it would be pretty good. And Drew wins the titles in dominant fashion, and then whatever it is that kind of distracts Roman Reigns, whether it's a fan in the audience that takes his eye off the ball and then a Claymore hits him right in the face, could be Karrion Kross coming out, doing something. That's kind of something I think is more realistic. A squash is probably not realistic, but a regular match is with Kross showing up with Scarlett and providing a distraction to Roman or helping Drew McIntyre win in some way. I would almost prefer a clean win by Drew because that accomplishes a couple of things. Number one, it gets Drew over to that level. That's what he needs to do, just to put down the champ like that. Nobody's going to be expecting it. And at the same time, Roman can just easily come back out on TV, make some sort of an excuse. It doesn't damage him at all. He'll probably own up to some of his mistakes. I took you too lightly. I assure you that will not happen again. And if Drew McIntyre does wind up beating Roman for the title, I promise you Roman will probably win the belt back from him. It's very likely that they could. Survivor Series is coming up. They might still figure out a way to separate the titles out. That's possible. But in terms of Clash, I think if you gave Drew McIntyre a clean statement win over Roman right in the middle in front of that crowd, it gives him his WrestleMania 36 moment back that he lost. It solidifies him as a major player. When you go out there and beat a star of that caliber, that means the company has faith in you. We saw Roman do that to Brock, and now Roman can be in the Brock Lesnar role, and McIntyre can be in the Roman role. Where Brock has always been, Roman's always been the dominator, but now, Drew is starting to catch up to him, and he's been saying for a while he owes him one. A few years ago when they wrestled at Survivor Series, that was a really good and very close match. So it feels like the story would be for McIntyre to win the titles at Castlevania, and I really hope he does. I think Triple H does things differently. You shouldn't say to me, "Oh, good mic work, they would never do that." How the fuck do you know? Triple H has been in charge for 4 weeks. This isn't the same WWE. This isn't Vince. This is Triple H. So it's totally different. I think Triple H is capable of anything. So I think you accomplish that and you get Drew over as that major star. If you can get his promos a little bit better and get him less boring or whatever it was about him that the fans were bothered by, and put him on that level and have him and Roman have their on-again, off-again war. They don't have to wrestle, 20 pay-per-views in a row or anything, but have a lot of matches on pay-per-view for the title that spans several years where they have an issue, they go off in their separate ways, and they revisit it over and over. They're career-long rivals in the company because they're, both jockeying to be the top star. Randy Orton and John Cena is the other two I was trying to think of. So I'd be perfectly fine with that, and I think Triple H is just the guy to make it happen. So that's my pitch. Drew McIntyre not only wins the title at Clash of Castle, he doesn't win it in a shady way. He wins it in a statement way. A clean loss will not, in any way, in any shape or form, harm Roman Reigns' character one single bit. That I promise you. In the short term, it'll make Twitter an ass circus, but in the long term, it won't make any difference in the star power of Roman Reigns, in the drawing power of Roman Reigns, and what he brings to the table. All it will do is elevate Drew. And then down the road, you can do another match. Roman can win the belt back. Whatever. You can have that. Or you can go Drew McIntyre and Cody at WrestleMania. By then, we might have 2 championships again. So we'll see how all that goes. But Clash at the Castle should be interesting. If Roman survives that and beats Drew somehow in front of that crowd, I don't know. I'm all for Roman winning as far as I'm concerned. I never want him to lose the belts. But I only say that because I've never found a situation where I've really wanted him to. I didn't really want Brock to beat him at WrestleMania or SummerSlam or anything like that. So now, this seems like a good spot. If Roman faces Kevin Owens, I'd be into Kevin Owens beating him as well. But they've got McIntyre and Roman have got a big match here, and I think possibilities for McIntyre to win are kind of good. I hope it is. So anyway, next week on SmackDown, here's what they got on tap. We've got the Roman Reigns 2-year championship celebration. There's a Ronda Rousey segment where I believe her suspension is officially lifted. We have Karrion Kross's in-ring debut. Hit Row taking on the Maximum Male Models. Butch against Ludwig Kaiser. And Viking Raiders against New Day in a Viking Rules match. So that's what we've got going on next week. Clash at the Castle, I only see 5 matches for this announced, so they better tack on a few more here because there's a big crowd in Cardiff for this. Of course, we got Roman Reigns versus Drew McIntyre, Gunther versus Sheamus, Shayna Baszler versus Liv Morgan, SmackDown Women's title, Riddle and Seth Rollins, and of course the 6-woman match, Bianca Alexa Asuka versus Bayley, Dakota, Kai, and Io Sky. We will see if they add anything to that. Would love a U.S. title match. Would love AJ or Dexter Lumis or something to be added to this last minute. We'll find out what they do. But 5 matches does not seem to be a lot for a card in front of a crowd this big. So they better add some shit. Let's transition over to AEW real quick, and then I will knock out these super chats, and then we got to kind of call it a day. I got to get to work. Would love it if you guys would hit the thumbs up button for me and keep doing that. And if you haven't subscribed, make sure you do that. This past week's Dynamite, of course, we all watched that together. You saw my real live reaction of CM Punk getting squashed by Jon Moxley, so we know everything that happened there. They had a really cool match announced for All Out as well. The Motor City Machine Guns are coming in. Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin, who've had a long run in TNA for all those years. They're going to be teaming up with Jay Lethal to take on FTR and Wardlow at All Out. That's kind of cool. And, of course, we saw Aussie Open win their trios match to advance to the Dynamite finals. Now, I kind of didn't realize that they're doing a Dynamite and a Rampage bracket in the trios tournament. So next week on Dynamite, I believe we get Omega and the Bucks against Will Ospreay and Aussie Open. That's going to be incredible. The winner, that's not even the finals. The winner of that goes into the finals to face the Rampage team, which I'll talk about in a minute because it feels like you know where they're going there as well. But did you guys see the promo that Kenny Omega cut on Will Ospreay? That was great, and it was pretty fucking scathing, too. Talking about their times in New Japan, how much more Omega has accomplished than Will Ospreay. He introduced Will Ospreay to everybody that he knows. When he was winning championships and facing Okada, he was doing it in front of big arenas and sold-out buildings. Ospreay just competed in the G1 in front of 3,000 people and just really went on to rip him apart as Ospreay basically sat on the apron, got face-to-face with him. That's really cool. I really would love to get some Omega and Ospreay action here. They might. It would be cool if they could tack that on to All Out. I just don't think there's any room for it. And I also think that this week on Dynamite, Omega and the Bucks are going to win. That's right. They can't tack that on to All Out because one of them is going to be going to the finals. I think Omega and the Bucks will somehow win this, I hope, because as I'm going to talk about in a minute, on Rampage last night, the Dark Order upset House of Black. So next week, the Dark Order is going to be taking on the Best Friends in the finals of the Rampage bracket to face the winners of Aussie Open Ospreay against Bucks and Kenny. So if it's Bucks and Kenny, I kind of want Dark Order to beat Best Friends next week so you can get Dark Order versus Bucks and Kenny, and that ties in the Hangman Page thing. So Hangman Page can either help Dark Order win or turn on Dark Order. One way or the other, Dark Order and the Bucks and Kenny is where they need to go, I believe. So they can tap in the Page stuff to that. We'll see. But Dynamite was crazy this past week, and I thought that was worth noting. Last night on Rampage, like I said, House of Black was upset by Dark Order. Best Friends and Danhausen were at ringside watching on during the match. Miro comes out, music hits, and that distracts Malachi Black. Buddy Matthews and Brody King run out to confront and battle with Miro in the aisleway, which leaves Malachi Black by himself, and he gets rolled up and pinned by Alex Reynolds, which was crazy to me. I cannot believe that happened, but it did. Quite the upset there. I mean, it's just to tie into the Miro feud with House of Black, but to pin Malachi. Couldn't you roll up Buddy Murphy or Buddy Matthews instead or whatever? I was just really surprised. I didn't really have a problem with it, though, because it's part of a bigger story. I don't think this damages or harms Malachi. I'm not a big fan of distraction roll-ups. You guys all know that, but there's worse things. Why not give a nice 1-2-3 win to a young kid? I always talk about the long run, the long game. In the long game, I don't think a win like that is something that's going to undo all the great things that Malachi Black has done in his career. I think that's almost insulting to him to think that it would. So even though it was a shocking pin, was it a bad one necessarily? No. I mean, it's fine. What's wrong with getting rolled up and pinned every now and then? I don't like it all the time, but this sets up a way to put Dark Order in the finals, because on paper they're an underdog to House of Black, but if they're now in the finals, that can give us that great possibility with Kenny and the Bucks. But they got to face best friends first. So next week, Cassidy and Chucky and Trent, I guess, will take on Dark Order, and I'm really hoping that Dark Order wins that match. We also had Sammy Guevara, Ty Mello defeating Ortiz and Ruby Soho in a tag team match. Wardlow defeated Ryan Nemeth. Chris Sabin showed up on the stage with Jay Lethal and Sonjay Dutt and Satnam Singh, but there was no Alex Shelley there, I don't believe. Will Hobbs won a squash match. After the match on the Tron, QT and the Factory have got Starks tied to a chair or something. They're beating the shit out of him. And in the main event, and that match is happening at All Out, Hobbs and Starks. And in the main event, pretty fun match between Claudio and Dustin Rhodes. Claudio defending the Ring of Honor title against Dustin Rhodes, hit his uppercut finisher for the win. And Rampage was a pretty watchable show last night. Really quick hour. Matches had stakes. Matches were good. And like to see that stuff. So Rampage was fun. Here's what we got for All Out so far. No idea on the status of Eddie Kingston and Sammy Guevara as of now. We're going to consider that match scrapped, but it could happen. We also have Jungle Boy taking on Christian, Will Hobbs, Powerhouse Hobbs, I should say, taking on Ricky Starks. That's going to be fun. Bryan Danielson versus Chris Jericho has also been made official. So has Jade Cargill defending the TBS title against Athena. We're also going to have a casino ladder match on the show. I've seen no participants added or announced for that yet, although there might be. Also have a couple of trios matches. We have the finals of the trios tournament, which I believe will probably be Dark Order versus Bucks and Kenny, so Hangman can have something to do with that finish. And we're also going to get FTR and Wardlow taking on Jay Lethal and the Motor City Machine Guns, which should be really fun. The tag team titles are also on the line. Swerve and Our Glory defending against the Acclaimed. The women's interim AEW title will be decided in the Fatal 4-Way. Toni Storm, Britt Baker, Jamie Hayter, and Hikaru Shida lined up for that one. And in the main event, it's probably going to be Jon Moxley versus CM Punk. Unless on Dynamite they do some crazy shit. I'm sure Moxley's going to come out to the ring. I'm the champion. Pay-per-views this week. I got no opponent. Let's bring it. That's when you can either debut and bring out MJF, or if you can bring out CM Punk and do it again, which it sounds like they're going to do. So we'll find out on Wednesday, but it definitely looks like there will be some sort of major match in the main event, and we should have a good 9-11 match card for All Out coming up on September 4th, 2 days before Good Mike birthday. Yeah. All right. Well, that does it for my notes. I got to get out of here in just about 10 minutes, but I do have time to knock out these super chats that I've missed while I was flapping my gums, and anything else you guys want to talk about, I will mention it while I'm here. I'm going to have to leave right after this, so those of you who like to listen to this in audio form on the podcast sites, it will not be up on the podcast sites probably until about 10 o'clock my time tonight, which will be 1 a.m. on the East Coast. So there will be about a 7-hour delay in the podcast hitting the airwaves there, but it will be up, I assure you of that, and I apologize for the delay. Let me thank Spaz Phoenix dropping in with another generous $20 drop. I want to say this, no dig at either company, but I think the surprises from Triple H hit different than TK's, because Triple H's surprises are homecomings and fixing of things in-house, where most of AEW's are look at who we got. Yeah, look at who we got, though, can be just as fun as homecoming ones, and I think so far, see, AEW's been around for 3 years. You're essentially saying 4 weeks of Triple H surprises are better than AEW's 3 years of surprises? I don't think so. I think Triple H is doing awesome things, righting these wrongs. That's what I love. You can tell that Triple H is saying, this was stupid, I'm changing it. Love that. I want him to continue to do that. Triple H hasn't had any big surprises yet. He's had, Karrion Kross and Gargano and Dexter Lumis. These are all big surprises, but I don't think they're CM Punk surprises or Danielson surprises or anything like that. I think we've had some pretty big ones in AEW as well. But there's going to be a a finite time and amount of those as well. AEW, the fans were like, they can't debut somebody every week. Eventually they're going to run out of free agents. Same thing with Triple H. He's going to run out of things to fix eventually. He's going to be in, full-blown rush mode right now, getting a lot of things done in a short amount of time. But you would imagine that will taper off, and he's going to get things a lot more settled. But as cool as Gargano's return was, as cool as Cross's return, Dexter's return, and anybody else that we might see come back, especially if it turns out to be Sasha and Naomi, those are all going to be awesome. Those are going to be great. I can't wait to see them. But that doesn't immediately make me think of the other company and what they're doing compared to that. I think both companies debuting people is great. Some debuts are going to be better than the others, but I don't think better debuts are exclusive to one company than the other. Some WWE debuts are going to be great, like Cody at WrestleMania. Has there ever been a better debut than that? Cody and Jericho, I think, have the two best debuts in WWE history. Those were phenomenal. But not all of them hit good. AEW has had some that hasn't hit right, because AEW is always obsessed with turning the lights off, and then when they come back up, they're like, oh, that's who it was? But they've also had some great debuts. So I just think it depends. No company has got the market cornered on good debuts. They know how to do it good, and they know how to do it bad. It's not like that. I think you'll see good and bad in both. Lackluster debuts, great debuts are possible in both companies, without exception. That's my thought on it anyway. But as always, Spaz, thank you. Zelius Ward, appreciate the 5 from you. Yo, good mic work. I'm a lapsed WWE viewer who's gone all in on AEW. Would you recommend WWE right now to a lapsed fan like me? Yeah, I would. It's getting progressively better. Shows are getting some fresh matchups. A lot of the typical WWE habits are getting are being curbed a little bit. Now we're still going to have the camera cuts and a lot of the crazy shit that they do. But in terms of just more logical booking, better matchups, a lot less redundant feeling of the show being phoned in and lackluster and stale, and we see the same thing every week. That has already, in a short amount of time, greatly improved. So yes, I would recommend WWE right now, even though I still think they are going to be working out some kinks. You should be able to tune in as a fan who hasn't watched in a while because it was stale. I think you should be able to tune in and see a pretty noticeable change right away, in my mind. So since you haven't watched in a while, I'd like to know what you think. But part of the reason why I was all in on AEW myself is because I was just so sick of WWE's way of doing things, and I've been desperate, all of us have, for an alternative to one wrestling company in the world, and I was so happy to see that come around. Little did I know that the fans would get so hung up on the tribalism that they just basically are too stupid to enjoy it. But not me. I'm happy. I love that if there's one thing a company's doing that sucks, I can always turn to the other one and hopefully find something better. And between the two companies and all of the wrestlers and all of the storylines here in these two North American companies, there should be something for every single wrestling fan. That's the way I look at it. So there's probably one of the better times to be a wrestling fan in the last 20 years. For sure. Kurt Angle is having another match, or plans on it. I don't know. Yeah, Wesley Chen, we talked about the draft a little bit earlier on. Looks like they might be postponing that till next year, and I explained why that's a good idea. There's no rush doing the draft. Vince leaving, Triple H being put in charge really freshened things up. It gave us fresh matchups. We're already in fresh territory. Let Triple H roll with his, get settled into his role for a few months. And then next year after WrestleMania, then you can keep things fresh with the draft. But you don't really need to do it right now, I don't think. Plus, there is no brand split. Nobody's exclusive to one show. I don't know what the hell they're going to do at Survivor Series this year. It would be great if Triple H brought back maybe the 5-on-5s or something more traditional, or just got rid of the brand supremacy thing altogether, because it makes no sense for any of this talent to fight for their brand, because they're not even on that brand. If they're on the red one on Monday, they could be on the blue one on Friday. What the fuck are they fighting for? It's just stupid. So I'm curious how Triple H is going to handle Survivor Series. It could be different this year. But anyway, that wraps it up right on the dot. About a 2-hour podcast here. Very happy you guys were here with us this afternoon. Thank you so much. Be sure to be back with us tomorrow night. We are going to be watching SummerSlam 2015. 2004, as voted on by my channel members. I have not put a link up to that yet, but I got to go to work now. When I come home tonight, the link to SummerSlam 2004 will be on my channel, and also the audio to this podcast will be pushed out to the podcast site and up on my website for download. You guys have a great rest of your Saturday afternoon, and I'm looking forward to hanging out with you tomorrow night to watch Benoit and Orton in the main event. Y'all take care. Excuse me.